I will be analyzing the poem "A Bronzeville Mother Loiters in Mississippi, Meanwhile a Mississippi Mother Burns Bacon" by Carolyn Brooks. The passage I've chosen starts in line 52 and ends in line 71. This poem was published with Brooks's collection of poems, The Bean Eaters, in 1960, and this poem really is the Ballad of Emmett Till. It's the story of Emmett Till after the murder in the eyes of Carolyn Bryant. Using reference to archetypes, metaphors, and enjambment, Brooks creates a poem that introduces and analyzes Carolyn Brooks's perspective of the Emmett Till murder. The first interesting piece of language I see is that Carolyn Bryant is continuing her use of archetype for Carolyn Bryant. For example, she says, the beautiful wife, and before, Brooks has referenced Bryant as being the maid mild in the story, mild being an archaic term for pretty and beautiful. And Brooks has been developing Carolyn's character, and by showing that all she has been told is that she's the maid mild in her life, and she's supposed to be the damsel in distress, and she's supposed to be a good mother and a good Southern lady and a beautiful wife to be worth the fine prince's love and the fine prince's action. So the reason that Carolyn Bryant is putting on lipstick and combing her hair to be more beautiful than ever is to show her fine prince, to show her husband that she is the maid mild and she was worth it, referring to the murder of Emmett Till. Another interesting piece in this passage is that Brooks chooses to use the same diction to describe Emmett Till and Carolyn's own kids. She uses young diction. For example, in this passage, she uses the word babies to describe Carolyn's own children, and then she uses the word little boyness to describe Emmett Till. And this connection of diction really connects the two together, and it shows that Carolyn sees Emmett Till in her own children, in the fact that they are both young, and Emmett Till was so young when he was murdered, and she sees that in her own children. She sees the youngness. Another interesting piece is that Brooks chooses to capitalize certain words in this passage. For example, him referring to Carolyn Bryant's husband, the fine prince of the story. This again is continuing the archetypes of the Ballad of Emmett Till. This capitalization of the word him is reminiscent of when you see he in reference to God in literature, it's usually capitalized. Carolyn Bryant's husband is seen to her as a godlike figure as of right now. It also denotes kind of like a savior figure, and it can also emphasize the fear that Carolyn Bryant feels towards her husband, him God-fearing. She fears her husband. Another important capitalization is the word it again referring to the murder of Emmett Till. This shows that Carolyn Bryant is having trouble accepting the fact that this happened in her life because of her, because she was playing the role of the maid mild, because she was playing the damsel in distress and maybe not asked, but told her fine prince. So it kind of denotes that she's upset about it. She can't even talk about it. She doesn't want to talk about it. She glosses over it, worth it not even mentioning it. She doesn't want to dwell on this event in her life. For technique, the main piece of metaphor that I saw was in the first stanza, right here. This metaphor uses quilt diction. For example, there were breaks, no thread, sew work. Quilt making is a very southern thing to do, And again, it kind of emphasizes Carolyn Bryant's role as the Maid Mild. She's being a good Southern woman. I think this metaphor is referencing the fact that Carolyn is beginning to realize that racism really isn't what she thought it was before. For so long, she's been told by society that blacks are beneath her, they're not as good as her, but now she's starting to see that Emmett Till was just a child, and he really didn't do much, and he really didn't deserve what he got. He didn't deserve what happened to him by her fine prints, and she doesn't really know how to accept this, shown by there's no thread capable of the necessary sew work. She can't fix it. She doesn't know how. And this, again, this kind of represents her archetype of being the Maid Mild and not being able to quite do anything about it. She's supposed to be the damsel in distress. She's supposed to be, things are supposed to be done for her by her fine prince. For structure, it's again the ballad. It's telling a story of Emmett Till. There's no real rhyme scheme, and it's very free-flowing. This free-flowing is really emphasized by the enjambment that is present throughout the poem and very present in this passage. This enjambment to me is kind of representative of Carolyn Bryant's thought process. She's constantly wondering, had she been worth it? Is she worth it? Is she really fulfilling the role of the Maid Mild, which is very important to her because society has told her that that's what she should be. So to me, this is just her thinking it all through, and thoughts are very free-flowing. There's not really a stop to them. They keep going, and there's no really start or end. In conclusion, I think it is very interesting that Brooks takes this perspective on this case. Brooks is from Chicago. She is a black poet. I think almost everyone would have assumed that she would be aggressive towards Carolyn Bryant and the Bryant family because this was a terrible incident against black people, and it did spark civil rights movement. It did have kind of a spark for the civil rights movement, and you would assume, and it's just interesting that Brooks takes a more understanding role towards Carolyn Bryant and tries to see it through her eyes and tries to see why she did it. And I think the conclusion that Brooks made was that her whole life, Carolyn Bryant has been told that she's the Maid Mild, that she needs to be beautiful, she needs to be this beautiful wife, this good mother, a good Southern lady who does Southern things, and she doesn't need to do anything for herself, and she needs to rely on her fine prince to protect her. And I think my interpretation of this poem is that Brooks wanted to kind of tell the reader that we're all born into roles which really define our lives and our actions after that.